contemplates spending their dollars, tax dollars, on birth control. For instance, here in New York, Catholics comprise about 45% of our population. They're the largest single group. Well, don't you think they should have the democratic right to lobby against having their money spent, their tax money spent, for something that they consider evil?
Well, I suppose they have a right. They certainly do it. But so have the others. They're only 45% of the population. That is not the majority.
But they have a right to get up and...
Certainly. I'd have no objection to having them say that, but I think we should have the same right. I say we, I mean non-Catholics.
Well, of course, this is a little bit at variance with something that you told our reporter earlier this week. You said earlier this week, it's not only wrong, it should be made illegal for any religious group to prohibit dissemination of birth control, even among its own members. In other words, you would like to see the government legislate religious beliefs in a certain sense.
History isn't a line, it's a circle, and at the center of the circle is the Savior. We love the hero, we crave the hand reaching to dark to pull us up. But look closer at the hand. Is it lifting, or is it just steadying the weight? Today we walk into the shadow of 1939, Margaret Sanger, the Negro projects and the effects of her ideology on modern society. Before the clinics, before the global fame, there was Connie, New York, a bleak industrial town. Sanger was the sixth of 11 children. Her mother Anne was a woman broken by the weight of 18 pregnancies in 22 years. Sanger watched her mother wither. She watched her die at 50, cough-wrecked and exhausted. At the funeral, Margaret didn't just see a grieving family. She saw a victim of biology. She turned to her father and didn't offer comfort. She offered an accusation. You caused this. Mother is dead because of you. This is where the trauma hardened into her philosophy. She didn't blame poverty of a factory town or the lack of social safety nets. She blamed the act of procreation itself. In her young mind, large families weren't a sign of life. They were a death sentence. But how does a grieving daughter become a eugenicist? The shift happened in the slums of New York City. As a nurse in the Lower East Side, Sanger saw lower depths. She saw women dying of self-induced abortions, using knitting needles and lye. She saw the great unwashed. She became radicalized, but not by empathy alone. She became obsessed with efficiency. She traveled to Europe and met the neo-Malthusian men who believed the world was a sinking ship and the only way to save it was to throw away the excess overboard. She met Havelock Ellis, a pioneer of eugenics, who convinced her that birth control wasn't just about women's rights, it was about race betterment. She stopped seeing individuals and started seeing populations. She stopped seeing mothers and started seeing biological threats to civilization. Now, paternalism is the quietest kind of supremacy. It doesn't wear a hood, it doesn't scream from a podium. It whistles softly, in this case, very cunningly. Because of her childhood, Sanger believed she had the answer. But that kind of trauma breeds a specific brand of arrogance. She didn't just want to help women, she wanted to prevent the mistake of her own mother's life from repeating. But she didn't stop at her own family. She scaled it. She decided she knew what was best for every mother in every town, in every race. I know what's best for you. It treats the whole people like a child, naive, directionless, and dangerous to themselves. It replaces a whip with a clipboard and calls it progress. It's 1939, the American South, a place of deep systemic pain. Sanger saw the suffering, but she didn't see the cause. She didn't see the lack of votes, the lack of schools, or the boots on the necks. She saw biological inferiority. She went to the wealthy donors with a plan, but she knew the optics were bad. In December of that year, she put into writing, "We do not want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population." She knew the community wouldn't trust her, so she hired a shield. She recruited black ministers to straighten out any rebellious members who asked too many questions. It wasn't giving choices, it was about managing the reaction. It was the ultimate social engineering project.
Warnings of misuse. I think if they're intelligent adults, they must know what they want.
In 1942, the project on paper officially ended, but the logic never left. It just evolved. The Negro Project wasn't a vacuum. It was a prologue to a century of medical trauma. When black women today walk into a clinic and feel a coldness in the air, they are feeling the ghost of 1939. The project planted a seed of deep mistrust because when healthcare is introduced as population control, the doctor's office becomes a sort of a battlefield. We see the direct lines of Sanger's paternalism to the forced sterilization of the 1960s and 70s, where thousands of black, indigenous, and Latina women were sterilized without their consent, often told they were simply having an appendectomy. Statistics show that even today, black women are significantly more likely to be pressured by medical professionals into long-lasting, irreversible contraception than white women with the same medical profile. The system looks at black fertility as a problem to be managed rather than a life to be supported. The Negro Project taught a dangerous lesson to the elite, that you can bypass a community's agency if you use their own leaders as a mask. Margaret Sanger wasn't a monster. She was a woman with a plan, born from her own scars and sharpened by an elitist obsession with purity. And in history, the most dangerous person is really the one that hates you. It's the one who thinks they are saving you on their own terms. The shadow of 1939 are still working. They are the algorithms that determine risk. They are the savior complexes of modern policy. The question is, who wrote the plan for your life? And what did they really think about you? Stay vigilant.